Guys, we get to hear from Jeff today. Jeff is a master communicator, and he is someone just like he's been a good friend of Jim and I's and a bunch of other RVPs on this call for 20 years now. We grew up in the business together, and it's just an honor to have friends like I think one of the things I love about this business is when you're going through it and it's not easy. It's kind of like being in battle with your buddy. Like we've been through. We've stepped on a few landmines over the years. We've probably set up shop at a Menards trying to get people to buy financial services. We've done everything that you can think of to try to get this business up and off the ground. And guys, last week we heard from Chris Royce. He talked about 20% of this business is knowing what to do, and 80% is knowing how to talk about what we do. And there's no one who's mastered their craft in the company better than Jeff with that. So he's going to give us some tips at the kitchen table. Jeff, the floor is yours, my man. Thanks for investing some time in the team today.
Hey, you got it, Pat. Always happy to help. And so many of my great friends are on this call right now. And I'm honored for the opportunity to share a little bit about what we've learned in our journey and how it might apply to you, and hopefully some of the things that I talk about in today's call, you can go out and apply to your business. And so ultimately, as Pat said, I mean, all of us are just products of the Primerica system. What's so great about our opportunity is that it gives people like you and I from probably very ordinary backgrounds a chance to be around some extraordinary people who can mentor us and shape us and lead us and coach us into some pretty extraordinary places. And so, Pat asked me to talk a little bit about how we've been able to be successful at the kitchen table, specifically when it comes to building our organization. I know that the theme of most of these Zoom calls are about mastering your craft. And they probably have a bent towards the security side of our business. And so I'll obviously tailor my talk a little bit that direction as well. We love the securities side of our business. As a matter of fact, I mean, it was, I know I see Kent Preston on here this afternoon. It was really Kent's orchestration of putting the right leaders in our path that got us to move down the securities path the way that we have. And the way that I look at this, Pat, I mean, at the end of the day, if I really want to grow a big assets under management business, well, then that's going to stem from growing more licensed people that can do investments. Right now, it took me a long time to figure that out, but we got connected with our wholesaler, with Franklin Templeton, through Kent's leadership. 13 years ago-ish, 12, 13 years ago. And he was able to help me understand that if I'm going to grow my investment business, I first must grow the number of licensed people that can participate in the investments business. So if I wanted a big recurring income, I needed a team of people that could do that. And before I could get a big team of licensed people in the securities business, I had to recruit them first. And so it all does come back to building distribution. And we think the best place to find those quality recruits is at the kitchen table. I just think if we're out there doing what we're supposed to do, helping families with our crusade, that we're going to be coming across great people that need to be a part of this business. And because of some of those steps being put in place, when you look at our securities business today, it really comes from a team of people that are working together to bring financial independence to families just like ours. We're fortunate to lead a team of 22 RVPs now, a couple over 300,000 a year, a couple over 200,000 a year, several over 100,000 a year. And through their teamwork, we've now got $143 million of assets under management. But that came not from me. Only 16 million of that's personal. So the rest of it's all through our hierarchy. But we've got 72 securities licensed folks in our organization. And so, through them, we did 28.8 million of new business in the last 12 months. That's about $33,000 of new business per month per agent. And so if we're going to grow that number, I've just got to double the number of licensed agents. It's pretty simple how that works out. And because of the security side of our business, Well, we got paid $162,350 last year just in the investment business. And so, all of that came from what I want to talk about with y'all today. How do I find these people that can join our business, that we can field train to district leader, get them life license, get them securities license to go out there and help families across that kitchen table? And so I really want to bring it all back to that today, because I don't think that you accidentally end up with a hierarchy of RVPs and a base shop full of licensed reps. I believe that's an intentionality. And unfortunately, most people in Primerica today don't enter into every client conversation with the level of intentionality that I do, or I believe they should. It comes from a very fundamental belief, Chase, that the best thing I could do for that family is bring them into our business. I love the products that Primerica offers. I've been a great Primerica client myself now for 22 and a half years. I've paid money every month for 22 and a half years on Primerica life insurance. And although I would tell you toe to toe, we're the best in the industry, so far for me, it's been a waste of money. I've been putting money into mutual funds. I started with $25 a month back in early 02 with a Roth IRA. And we now put thousands of dollars a month into mutual funds. But I'm not retired yet. The thing Primerica gave my family 22 years ago that changed my life was an IBA. I'm so thankful, and I mean this sincerely, y'all, because I didn't know any better. The guy could have sat down, I'd have bought the insurance, I'd have set up the Roth, and I'd have given him referrals. I'm so thankful that he didn't just sell me and leave. God knows where my life would be today. I'm so thankful he gave me at least a chance to say no to the opportunity. He didn't say no for me. Y'all, if you're around Primerica long enough, you're going to run into people when you sit down with them and they say, oh, Primerica, I love your company. I'm already a client of your company, or I looked at your company 6 years ago. And you'll ask them, why aren't you working with us then? If you're already a client, why didn't you come work with us? And unfortunately, most are going to tell you, I didn't know that was an opportunity. There are so many people in Primerica today that just see the sale, which is beneficial to them, but they don't see what could be, which would be beneficial to the client that they're sitting across the table with. And so, as we jump into the skills I've tried to master over my time, and I've tried to help others learn as well, is how do I recruit from the kitchen table? We think that real crusaders come from the kitchen table. Listen, obviously, my organization, like y'all's, like, we find people all over the place. I'm a little partial to kitchen table recruiting, though, because that's where Primerica found me. And a lot of the great people that I've been able to work with over my career, we found at the kitchen table as well. So if you're taking notes through our conversation today, I think my first note would be, right, it is my total goal to recruit that client. I don't know why I am the way that I am. I don't know what I've listened to or learned over the years, but like, even people, Pat, where I don't really want to recruit them. Like, there's just maybe something like, I don't know if I'd really love working with them, or I don't really know. And do I really want to drive an hour to come field train this person? And I don't really want to recruit them, but I can't help it, right? They'll say something like, oh, I just wish I could make more money, and I've been looking for part-time work. And I'm like, you could do this. Like, I just can't help myself, right? I mean, it's in me. And I think part of it is I'm just so grateful that Primerica gave me a shot. And I don't want to be the one that blocks yours. And so, like, it is my goal to at least present the opportunity. They can tell me, no, I'm totally good with it, but I'm not going to make that decision for them, right? I mean, it's kind of like in my faith, it's just sharing the gospel, right? If I offer and you reject, that's on you. But if I don't even share it, man, that's on me. And I just don't want to go through the rest of my life wondering what would have happened if I'd have just given them a shot. And so you say, well, how do you build an organization of people that are recruiting their clients? Like, it's an intentionality, and I teach it and I expect it. And I'm going to go through some of the points today that allow this to be a pretty natural conversation at the kitchen table. And so I believe the recruiting method that we've used the best, Trisha, is what I would call the recruiting sandwich, right? The top bun of my presentation is a recruiting conversation. All the good stuff in the middle, the hamburger patties and the extra thick bacon and the cheddar cheese, like everything in the middle is all of the finances and the F&A, and we'll look at your statements and review your policies. And then the bottom bun, the last thing I'm going to talk about before we end this conversation is recruiting you again. So I'm going to sandwich all the financial things in between two plugs of our opportunity. This is the opportunity for me is not an, oh, by the way, conversation at the end. It is not finances, 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 finances. And oh, by the way, you can work here too. And I'm done with the conversation. No. It is right up front, very front and center of what I want to accomplish. And so I believe the recruiting conversation begins when you start going through form. Right? I'm sure all of us have been taught form, family, occupation, recreation, motivation. It's a very natural progression to ask questions to get to know your prospect. Right? And so we do a little bit of a mix of Zoom meetings or in-person meetings. It's much easier to create conversation if I'm in person, right? Because I can talk about, I saw your truck in the driveway and I can ask questions about that. Or I see the deer head on the wall that I wouldn't see on a Zoom screen. We can talk about that. Or, right, I can find out what's of importance to you and we can talk about that. Don't forget, a person's favorite topic to discuss is themselves. But even if I'm on Zoom, I've got to ask questions to get them to open up. So I'm going to talk about their family and where they're from and how many kiddos they have and what their interests are. And has school started yet? Did y'all take a vacation this summer? And I'm going to get to know them. Where did y'all grow up? How'd y'all meet? And we're talking about occupation. That's kind of the natural next step. And I'm not just going to ask, so, hey, tell me what you do for work. Make a mental note and then move on. No, I actually want to know more about that. So tell me more about your job. How long have you done it? And they say 2 decades or 2 months. Usually my response is the same. Oh man, you must love it. And what am I doing? I'm getting a response, Rachel. I'm getting them to say, no. Because not many people love their job. And why do I want to know that? Because if you don't love it, you might leave it. And so I want to try to get that on the table, right? And so how long you done that? What do you love best about it? And they'll tell me, well, certainly if you've been there for 6 years, there's got to be something that frustrates you. Like, what would you change if you could? And they'll tell me. Now, I'm not necessarily diving straight into a recruiting point right there, but my attitude always has been anything you say can and will be used against you in a recruiting conversation with Jeff. So I'm tucking away these answers to bring back up later. Because if I know what you love about what you do, and I know what you don't love about what you do, it's pretty natural later in our conversation to bring that back up. Hey, if I could show you a way to get more of what you love and less of what you don't love, would you explore that? It's a pretty easy recruiting conversation if I can find out their likes and their dislikes. From a recreational standpoint, right? I'm still going through form. Well, what do y'all do for fun? Did you take a vacation this summer? Where do y'all like to travel? Are you a beach type of family or a mountain type of family? Then I'm going to find out their interests when it comes to recreation. And I'm most likely going to ask, do you get to do that as often as you'd like? What's the answer for most people? No. Why not? It's usually time, money, or both. Okay, well, what can I offer? Freedom of time and freedom of money. And so if I know these things, I've got a chance now to recruit you through this presentation. I know typically, and this sounds maybe a little bit silly to people who don't walk in focused on recruiting a person. I think actually Todd and Elisa Greer say years ago that they believe that FNA stands for finding new agents, right? And I adopted that, and we believe that, right? I mean, if we're gonna do this, right, I'm gonna try to recruit you into my business at least at least part-time. But I'm very intentional on the front end. And I tell folks, like, I genuinely typically know before I ever even get into the presentation whether or not I'm going to recruit you. Right. And I'm asking good questions. I'm reading body language, right? I'm watching for like a smile to creep across their face, like all of these little giveaways that tell me that I'm speaking their language. Okay, so form for me, that's a recruiting conversation. Some people say, well, I'm going to go through form so I can connect to them and I can get them to give me their 401k statements. Okay, that's great. Y'all, listen, if I recruit you, guess what I'm 100% getting my hands on? Your 401k statements, your life insurance policies, your mama's life insurance policies, your next door neighbor's 401k statements. I'm going to get all that. But if I don't recruit you, I might only get yours. So I'm going to go through form. My recruiting conversation starts right there. The next thing I'm going to do that's, again, Rachel, a chance to start to pull them into my world and get them to see themselves doing this business is I'm almost always training somebody. I don't think it's super smart to go do appointments by yourself. I mean, that really is just, in my opinion, a short-sighted move, right? Even if it's not like the person beside you prospect, you should have somebody sitting there learning. Like why would you do a meeting with nobody watching you? Right. One of the questions you should always ask yourself is this: is what I'm doing right now getting me out of doing what I'm doing right now? And if there's nobody sitting here watching me, then this is not getting me out of doing more presentations. Okay, so the next point as my presentation evolves, Pat, is I'm going to tell them a little bit about my story. And one of the skills I teach in our organization is how to craft a compelling personal story. And I don't think it's as simple as just like tell your story. Because I'll listen to people come in and, hey, tell me your story. When you start to go through a presentation and you introduce yourself and tell them a little about your background and why you got excited about Primerica, like, what do you tell them? And I'll be honest with you, 9 times out of 10, their stories suck. Like, they are not compelling stories. They are turning clients off, not turning clients on. Like, they're really not the kind of stories we want to be telling people, right? I mean, like, well, in second grade, when I was in science class, Julie pushed me on the playground and I scraped my knee. And I'm like, bro, what does that have to do with this, right? So, well, they might want to know why I was limping when I got here today. Like, stop it. Like, a compelling personal story, right? Why was Primerica attractive to you? Involves some things that I would consider basic human desires. So they start to tell themselves, I feel the same way. I'm just like her. I'm just like him. So I'll talk a little bit about when Primerica found me. I was working a 6-day-a-week job. I mean, I felt I was overworked and underpaid. Why do I say that? Because most people feel overworked and underpaid. We found ourselves like, people talk about living paycheck to paycheck. We were living like Friday to Wednesday and pray until Friday. Why? Because a lot of people feel that way. It's a common basic human desire, right? I just wanted a shot to live life on my terms. Like, I never considered financial services, wasn't really looking to do anything in this career field, but he said, hey, you can help people in a meaningful way and be your own boss. And I said, guys, like, who doesn't want to be their own boss? And again, I'm watching them and they're smiling and nodding like, and I know right there, I got you. I got you. You just agreed with me that everybody wants to be their own boss. And what are you not? You're not your own boss. So my compelling personal story should be 2 to 3 minutes tops. Tops, right? You sit there and talk 8 minutes about yourself. They're sitting here like thinking like, who is this person and why do they think I care about them so much? This is a boring story, right? So you want to, and if you're wondering like, hey, is my story good or not? Like, I would get with your RVP and say, hey, can I practice this for a second and tell me, like, would this be a compelling story to get you curious about what I do? And let them help you craft it. Okay. And so we've got there. I've gone through form. I've started to connect. I found out a little bit about him. I said, well, let me just take a quick second and tell you who I am and how I got here. I'm really excited to be training your nephew, Joey. I'll tell you how we met here in just a second. And so all of these things are getting that prospect to kind of take down their guard, and warm up to the conversation. Don't ever forget, a person's asking themselves, typically subconsciously, but every time you meet somebody, they're asking themselves, do I like you and can I trust you? Do I like you and can I trust you? And they've got to be able to answer that question 100 different ways in the next 25 minutes. And so having a pleasing personality, making the conversation more about them than it is about you, asking genuine quality questions versus making a bunch of statements, right? All of these little things get them to say, you know what, I kind of like this person. I kind of like this person. I kind of trust this person. I would feel comfortable introducing my family and friends to this person. Like all of these things get them warmed up to the idea of working with you. If they don't like you, what are the chances they're going to come join you? Zero, zero, right? And so they could like the services and not like you. They're not coming to work here. People don't join companies. People join people. Okay. And so that's important. So a compelling personal story. And then the last thing that I'll do before I go into my presentation is I'm going to let the prospect know there's three things I'd like you to listen for as I go through my presentation. That will for sure be a benefit to your nephew, Joey, maybe a benefit to you, but almost every time I explain my company, these three things happen. The first is this. A lot of times you're going to see what my company does, and you're going to think of people that you know, coworkers or friends or family members that would benefit from the things I'm showing you. If that happens, I'd like for you to either jot those names down or remember those names as people you would potentially introduce to Joey. You see, that's really important to me as a trainer. Because your nephew's not going to be cold calling. He doesn't advertise. He's going to be relying on families just like yours that know what he does and like what he does and are willing to introduce people to Joey. Does that make sense? Are you comfortable? Does Joey have enough credibility with you that if you like what our company does, you would refer people to Joey? Sure. Great. The second thing that almost always happens when I go through my presentation is what happened to my wife and I when I first saw this. Y'all, I've always wanted to be a guy that could do the best possible with my finances. And so if there was a company that was willing to sit down and put a professional written plan together to help me get out of debt and save money, I was for sure going to look at that. Doesn't that make sense? So if you see value in what I'm about to show you, and that's something that interests you, well, I'd certainly love to be able to talk about that before we're done. Is that fair? I say, sure. And the third thing I want you to listen for, and in my opinion, the most important thing, is I hope you love what you see tonight so much that you want to come work with us too. And I'll pause for a couple of seconds because what I just did, Pat, is I just brought some tension, right? I brought this right up to your face, right? And because most of what I've done is like it's roundabout. Hey, you might know somebody, you might know somebody, you might know somebody. There's no pressure there. Now I brought it straight to you, right? And all of a sudden, people's natural tendency is to put a wall up. Hey, don't come at me, right? And I just did. My biggest goal is I hope you love what you see so much. You want to come work with us too. Count 1, 2. And I'm going to back that tension off. Even if not, that's okay. But I'm still going to share with you tonight a little bit about why Joey's working with me. Because I'm confident you're going to know people that would be a great fit with our company. And if you don't know what we offer, well, then you can't refer those people to Joey. Is that fair? And they say yes. What that does is it gives me, Brian, permission to talk about the opportunity again before I leave. But I put it right up front. My biggest goal is you love it so much you want to come work with us too. Y'all, I do that and I make myself do it every time. Well, what if they're 21 and a college student? I still say it. What if they're 81, a widow on Social Security? I still say it. I make myself, right? My biggest goal is you love it so much, you'd come work with us too. Like, oh, honey, I couldn't do that. Oh, you sure? It'd be a blast. Okay, well, you probably know people that'd be a great fit, so I'm still going to explain it to you so you can refer people to Joey. I make myself bring it up so that it's not an oh, by the way. Because I'll be honest, I'm as guilty as the next person. If I don't do it up front, and all of a sudden, as we go through the presentation, I find out that you got a $500,000 whole life policy you're spending $400 a month on. You got 120 grand at an old 401k you've never rolled over. Well, now I'm starting to smell paychecks, and I don't want to screw it up with the recruiting conversation. And so I just won't talk about recruiting. And that's a mistake. So I make myself say it right up front. And then your presentation is whatever your presentation is. A couple of times I might sprinkle another recruiting plug in during my presentation, especially if we're on the same wavelength, they're having a great time with this, they got a great attitude, right? They're pretty open and receptive to what I'm talking about. I said, I mean, y'all think about this, right? I mean, if you didn't know this, think about how many other people you know that have never heard of the rule of 72. Like, I mean, if you got paid to teach that to people, especially on your own terms, being your own boss, like how awesome would that be? Like, oh yeah, that'd be great. So I'm going to sprinkle a couple little plugs as we go through. All right. Now, for me personally, and again, the opinions of the speaker are just the opinions of the speaker. It's a recruiting sandwich. Okay. It's not a Big Mac. I don't have a recruiting conversation, a couple of patties, another recruiting conversation, a couple of patties, another recruiting conversation, right? So if I'm building momentum, I've already talked about recruiting up front. I've told you why I'm doing this. I've told you I hope you love it so much you come work with me too. And now we're going through the concepts. And for me, that's building into an F&A. I'm going to keep building into the F&A, right? One of the mistakes I made early on, and I actually had a couple of clients call me on it, which got me to maybe shift it. All right. And when I got started, we used a 6-page sales presentation. The company still has a 6-pager today. And on that 6-page presentation, it's got the credibility, all of our concepts, and then the compensation at the end. And I was just going through it all, Jim. So I would go through our credibility, all of our financial concepts to kind of build into the F&A. But before I would gather data, I would go through then and then talk about, hey, you could work with this too. And if you were part-time, we call that a district leader. Here's how much money you can make to do that. And I actually had a couple of people at that point say, hold on, I'm sorry, I'm confused. Are you trying to sell me something or are you trying to recruit me? I was like, yes. Right. So like in a confused mind always says no. Right. So as I'm building through the concepts into the complementary financial needs analysis, I'm just going straight into that. So I'm going to go through all the concepts. I'm going to build into this. Has anybody ever put together a plan that identifies every single area of your personal finance, put it on paper, tailored to you to make sure you're on track to hit your financial goals and dreams? No. Well, knowing that's what we offer, would that be something you'd be open to looking at, especially if it were free to get? Sure. Great. What age in a perfect world would you like to retire? And I'm going into gathering the data. That's just a natural, I'm building a little bit of yes momentum. It's just a natural progression into gathering the data. So I'm going to get the financial analysis. I'm going to schedule a carryback. I'm going to get a dollar commitment. I'm going to get a commitment to do business. I'm going to get a commitment to do referrals. And we're all good. And I say, okay, well, before we're done, I want to take the last 3 minutes and finish the same way that I started. You know, I mentioned at the beginning, there's a chance for you to come do this too. And quite frankly, if I just be honest with you, I think you'd be incredible. I would love to work with you, even if it was part-time. All right, pause. Guys, I can't tell you what that phrase right there does to the right person. Do people feel appreciated at their jobs currently or no? No. And they know it. To actually have somebody say, you know what, I'd love to work with you. I think you'd be so good at this. There's probably nobody in their life talking to them that way. All of a sudden, you become somebody they want to be around. Their boss doesn't make them feel that way. and you say you'd be really good at that. I'd really enjoy working with you. I think there's something here for both of us. We should dig in on this. Just that opens people up to say, you know what? All right, tell me more about it. Maybe, right? And again, I'm a recruiter, right? My job is to get you in the boat. I'm not playing hard to get. I'm trying to catch you, right? We find quality through quantity. You know how many great people ended up in my business that did not think they would be great at the beginning? If they said, "Oh no, I don't think I'd be any good," I said, "Okie dokie," and just leave. Right? I'd never had them. Right? I'm gonna keep going after it and going after it, going after it, just like you'd go after that sale. Because you know, if you could overcome their objections and get them to say yes, you're gonna make a grand. Y'all, you know what's better than making a grand on a sale? Overriding an RVP for 40 years. That's worth way more money to me. But it's not supposed to be easy. That's why you're a professional. So I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to take the last few minutes and at least finish on the same topic we started with. I think you'd be amazing. I honest to God, you might not want to, and that's okay, but I want to recruit you. It would be so fun to work together. I at least want to explore this because I think you'd be incredible. Okay, well, what are we doing? I said, well, listen, here's kind of what got me. When I saw this 22 years ago, I said, okay, the company's legit. The products make a ton of sense. Everybody I know needs it. And if I could start part-time with no set schedule and no boss and no quota, well, then there's really no risk. Does that make sense? So when my wife and I looked at this and we talked about it, I said, okay, well, let's play this out. Best case, worst case. Right? Worst case, I pay $100 for a license. Y'all, I was paying $300 for a textbook I never opened in college. So $100 for a license that was mine to keep was a no-brainer. So I said, okay, worst case, I pay $100, I get a license. I hang out with these guys for, 2 or 3 months. I learn a bunch of valuable information about money I'm not going to learn anywhere else and decide it's not really a good fit for me. I still get to use all of that knowledge to benefit my family for the rest of my life. If that's the worst thing that happened, would that be worth $100 in a couple of weeks of my time? And they say, yeah. Best case, what this guy's telling me is true. And I do like it. And I can make great part-time money or eventually run an office and make a 6-figure income. Would that be better than what I'm doing now? Yeah. So best case or worst case, it's still a benefit to my family. Why not give this a shot? Doesn't that make sense? And most of them say, makes perfect sense. Like, that's really all the further I need to go. Like, I typically on that first visit, Pat, I'm not diving into compensation. Well, if you were a part-time district leader on a life insurance sale, you make $532. Like, I normally don't need that. I just got your F&A. I know I'm coming back Monday at 6. We're building a relationship. I just want you to be open to the idea. That's all I need. What's the point of getting to first base? To hopefully get to second. Once I know I'm getting to second base, my conversation's done, y'all. Right? I'm not asking somebody to marry me on the first date. I just want to know, can we get to the next conversation? If, let's say, maybe you're not super confident in your skills yet at recruiting from the kitchen table, then I would coach you, like, at least get them open to the idea and then introduce them to your leader. Like, well, I've got a couple of RVPs in my organization right now, with more to come. Actually ended up with 3. I got Caleb and Ailey Haddon, Andrew McAtee, and Evan Jones. So these 3 came from a kind of a chain of replacements, and it all stemmed from a Zoom kitchen table appointment, like right in the middle of COVID. So we weren't even seeing people in person. The client lived out of state, but my agent that did the presentation called me afterwards and said, man, they were so sharp, told me all about them. It was unbelievable. Like just a great family. They got a faith background. They have incredible kids. They're just really sharp, really connected, said all the right things, like way above my leadership lid. Would you call them? I said, absolutely. Right. And by the way, you're going to have agents that find themselves in conversation with people way above their leadership lid. Well, then you should get them in front of somebody else. So my guys say, well, okay, well, what if somebody's like maybe like a 7 and I'm like a 5? Like, how do I recruit a 7? You don't. You introduce them to an 8 or a 9 and let them recruit for you. So literally, I got on the phone the next day. The client's name was Jim. I said, hey, Jim, I know you don't know me. I'm Jeff. I work with Primerica. Caleb had a conversation with you last night. I catch you at a good time. He said, yeah. I said, well, listen, I know he didn't tell you I'd be calling, but he was just raving about his conversation with you and your wife. And was telling me all about your background and what you do for work and you're entrepreneurial and just a great family. And he like went on and on and on and on and on. And I thought to myself, like, I've got to meet this guy. And so, listen, I'm calling because you sound like the kind of person that would do great in my business. And I'd love a chance to recruit you if it was possible. Would you be open to a conversation about doing something for extra money on the side? He said, actually, yeah, I'd entertain a conversation, which, by the way, all good people do. I'd entertain a conversation. I said, perfect. Let's set up a time. I'd like to hop on Zoom, you and your wife, meet face to face and explain it to you. And we recruited them, and that led to some people who led to some people who led to some people. I got 3 RVPs out of that conversation because my guy wasn't confident, but I was. So if you're building a team of people, just teach them, hey, at least get the fish on the hook. I'll help you get it in the boat. Right? So if you don't feel confident recruiting them, introduce them to me, hand me the pole, I'll get them in the boat for you. Everybody wins. But you're not going to recruit all your clients on accident. Last point, and then maybe I'll kick it back to you, Pat, or take a question if that's appropriate, is let's say that today's Wednesday and we're not scheduled to do the F&A carryback until next Wednesday. In my world, when it comes to recruiting and building a team, that is way too far away to get back together. So there have been situations where I meet a client at their kitchen table. I'll gather the F&A data. We're going to come back and get together next week and talk about your financial needs analysis. But you're super interested in doing this. I said, well, listen, if I can be honest with you, if you're excited about this and I'm excited about this, I don't want to wait a week. Let's get together the next day or two, even if it's just on a Zoom conversation. Let's talk deeper into what it would look like for you to work with me part-time. We can actually put your numbers in the computer together so you can see how simple it would be to do this and how successful you could be. And then I'll bring it all back to you next Wednesday and we get everything set up. Does that make sense? And then like, yeah, sure. I did this last a couple of weeks ago with somebody in my base shop. I said, they really wanted to work with me. I said, look, there's no magic here. There's nothing special. I'm not a genius. We've got a great computer program. Let's just hop on Zoom together. We'll put your own F&A in the computer together so you can see how simple it is. If that makes sense, then you're going to come work with me and we'll get this set up and you can be your first client. They said, yeah, fantastic. That'd be awesome. Let's do that. And it was through that process I said, oh my goodness, I could totally do this. Yes, of course you could. And then we recruited her and got their business and everything else took care of itself. Now, why again are we talking about this? Because recruiting is how we get licensed agents. And licensed agents are how we build AUMs. And AUMs pay us as long as we take care of that client relationship. And so I don't have $143 million in AUMs because I'm a great personal producer. I told you only 16 million of those came from me. And if I'm honest with you, all 16 million came from field training new associates. Guys, I don't know anybody with money, right? I recruited people who knew people with money. But that now generates $162,000 a year of compensation to my wife and I because we got good at recruiting a kitchen table, teaching our team how to recruit at the kitchen table, and over time, that built into an army of licensed agents. Y'all, I hope that helps. I hope I didn't go over my time, Pat, but I'm super thankful for the invite to chat.
That was a clinic. So, guys, one thing that you can take from Jeff, and you know, like when I got started in the business and Jim was training me, I was like, Jim is just so darn smooth. Like, I don't know if I can ever do what he just did. But the one thing you don't see, I know Kent early on, didn't he like challenge you to write word for word, like some stuff that Brett Burks did, like on one of his audios? Didn't you just like
word for word?
So you listened to that how many times as you were just typing out, like hundreds, probably hundreds of times you listened to some of those audios, right?
Some of them, probably close to 100, yeah.
So I would challenge, like, for those of us who want to get really good at recruiting, I would challenge you. This is being recorded. I'm going to put it on our Telegram. But that like minute 17 to minute 23, where he's going through his 3 reasons why we're here today, I would challenge you just to type that in. And Jeff got really good at doing that, but his whole downline didn't get really good by just Jeff typing it out. Like he had some other teammates. I know Trevor does everything you do. So he probably typed that and listened to that 101 times just to feel like he's a little better, right? So I think like share this with your people, have them type that out. And Jeff, I really appreciate your time. Anyone have questions? You're welcome to unmute yourself. I know that we're a little over here, but yeah, we're just so thankful for your friendship. We're thankful for your willingness to share some of your wisdom today, and have an awesome rest of the day, guys.
Appreciate you.
See ya.